Happy Thursday, and welcome back to one of the very best episodes of the Rocketeer Minute, where each and every day, Monday through Friday, we go over 1 minute of the greatest adventure movie that Walt Disney's ever made, the 1991 Joe Johnston-directed film, The Rocketeer. I'm one of your hosts, Jim O'Kane of TVDads.com.
And I'm Hal Bryan, an airplane geek from the Experimental Aircraft Association here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So, Jim, we've had some guests on the show. We're going to have a lot more guests on the show, but we've got somebody today that I think it's safe to say blew our minds. We released this podcast just last week, and technically before midnight our time, before it technically even went live, this guy was out there and he tweets at us, "I'm listening over my oatmeal." He says, "We've done a great job so far," and then he says, "How can I help?" Now, you and I passed out for about a day and a half, and then when we came to, we replied back and made arrangements to bring this gentleman on. Talented actor, long-running career. He's been in all sorts of things. But to us, first and foremost, the original Cliff Secord. Welcome, Billy Campbell, to the Rocketeer Minute.
Thanks, boys. Thank you. I'm really thrilled to be here on this my first podcast. The first podcast I've ever actually personally been part of.
Oh, that's great. We would like you to think we're seasoned veterans. So,
well, I promise to think of you that way.
This is fantastic. As I was relating earlier, when your text came in, you're in Europe right at the moment, and you had texted about 2 a.m. when you had replied, and my wife woke up to me yelling and in the dark in our bedroom, and she couldn't understand what was going on. And I was like, look, pointing at this tweet that had come in. And she said, "Well, calm down. You can contact him later." But I couldn't. I had sent you back and forth some messages. But this is, I can't even say it's a dream come true, because we never expected to even have you on the show. And this is like sweeps week for us. This was fantastic.
Exactly. And so early on.
You guys tweeted at me, and I thought, wow, it's a whole. I was confused at first. I thought it's a single minute long. I thought, for some reason, the podcasts were a minute long. It was a minute long podcasts about the Rocketeer, and then I started listening, and I was like, well, it says there's 59 minutes left in this thing. So
who are these guys?
Yeah, I came to it a bit slowly, but I started listening and I couldn't stop. It's just my kind of thing. It's so utterly geeky. And I think what I tweeted back is perfectly honest. I think by the end of the first minute, I had learned more about the Rocketeer, the film, than I had actually known.
Wow.
Before. So
yeah, I mean, this is you've said online many different places. I think it's even in your IMDb listing that you always wish there was some kind of a special feature or a director's commentary or some kind of extra information about the Rocketeer. And we agree there should be some more stuff. So now, watching this like it's the Zapruder film is probably about the only way you can get through and find every little single bit. And,
it's with a happier ending.
Yeah,
I think that's important. Very important to point out. Billy, before we get too far down the road, we always have this understanding we're going to be professional. We're not going to gush. But I would never, I'll never forgive myself if I don't, at least on behalf of everybody listening, but really just for me and probably for Jim. I got to tell you, I've waited more than half my life for the chance just to say thank you for your role in this film, how you took this beloved graphic novel, the comics that I loved so much, you brought it to life. This is the most perfect casting I could have possibly imagined. And, we have lives, we have jobs, credit cards, keys, all the other good stuff. But so we're not sitting here watching this movie every minute of every day of our lives, but it's always been part of my life since it came out. And it means the world to be able to tell you, voice to voice here, how much it's been appreciated.
Well, thank you for saying so. I mean, it's obviously been such a was and is such a big part of my life, and I will be eternally sort of grateful for having had the chance to have that as something that I've done. It was my first film. It's an amazing film to be a first film, and but if you're going to thank anybody thank anybody, you should thank Johnny Depp for turning it down.
Thank you, Johnny Depp, wherever you are.
Yeah,
when I met him in his agent's office, only hours after he had turned it down, I picked him up. I was surprised at how small he is. He's like a toy poodle. But I literally picked him up off the ground and gave him a huge hug, and then was entirely embarrassed because I think he wasn't sure exactly that was the right thing to do. But
it's funny. Johnny Depp has been calling us every day wanting to be on the podcast, and we keep turning him down.
Yeah, and there is a Pirates Minute. There's a Pirates of the Caribbean Minute. He can go talk to them anytime he wants to. So it's just...
Best of luck, Johnny Depp. You toy poodle.
But I thank you for thanking me, and it really, I can't stress how what a part of my life it was in so many different ways, and how very, very fond I am of it, both as a film that continues to sort of exist, and as the experience it was at the time. Yeah. It was it's fantastic.
I was talking with Hal about this earlier, that when Neil Armstrong went to the moon on Apollo 11, they were worried that he wouldn't have a lot of time on the ground. So they had him when he went down the ladder of the lunar module. He went out, he took a bunch of pictures, and the first thing he did was he scooped up a bunch of rocks and stuffed them in a pocket in his pants leg, in case, if he had to get out of there, he had a contingency sample. So just in case the connection fails, there's a whole bunch of questions we want to ask before anything happens. Is the story true that you actually went out to find a barbershop to cut and just waved the Dave Stevens novel at the barber to say, "Cut my hair like this"? Is that a real thing?
That is a real thing. I was at the time that this opportunity came up. I was working at the Renaissance Fair in Southern California, doing Shakespeare at the Southern California Renaissance Fair, and I auditioned for those guys the first time. I don't know where my head was. I know exactly where it was. It was at the Renaissance Fair. And I came in to meet them the first time. I had long hair and a beard. And I think they just wondered why I was in the room, if I hadn't come there accidentally as the janitor or something. And I left, and I didn't really think much more of it. Until I happened to, I think I went out and found the comic book sometime later. And then I saw the comic book, and I realized how much I looked like the guy. I was like, holy hell, I'm maybe I could get this part. And, so I went and, I took the comic book to the barbershop, had my hair cut that way. And the reason I look so much like the guy is because Dave drew himself as the Rocketeer, and we look a lot alike. We could be brothers. We could have been brothers. And So I thought he was just like a Moon Over Miami fan, and then he just went from there to, No. I'm not sure he would ever have known what Moon Over Miami was. And no, he might have known the film that was in the 40s that was Moon Over Miami.
Oh, okay.
He would never have known what the TV show was.
Well, right now we're going to focus on minute 9 because you will be back. Okay. So we can talk about some things here, and we start off with poor Cliff and Peavy just looking at the wreckage of the GB there, and you had just climbed out and saved Jenny's picture, and
that's right.
Now you get to have I don't know how else to describe it, like a hissy fit. Just kind of.
It's exactly.
It's exactly right.
It's funny, we talked about this a little bit on a previous minute, but about 4 or 5 years before this movie came out, I was finishing my pilot's license, and I had a picture just like that. Not of Jennifer Connelly, of somebody in my life at the time. And
I remember you saying that in the podcast. Yeah.
That's right. You're our biggest fan. I forgot. You've heard the story already.
I'm actually up to date. I've listened to them all. Wow. I mean, the ones you've released.
That's incredible. Well, anyway, so obviously that scene resonated so much with me. But yeah, then you stomping away from the airplane, you're so mad. You've got that lovely helmet and goggles, that perfectly period appropriate thing, and you just fling it to the ground. And it's such a great dichotomy with you and Alan Arkin in this scene. And I love the chemistry you two guys have through the entire film.
I'm telling you that was one of the great things about doing this film was I got to work with Alan Arkin. We're still fast friends, and I'm probably going to see him this summer. But yeah, I mean, you'd have to be a fence post not to have chemistry with Alan Arkin. He's amazing. He's just amazing, and what a gem of a human being. Yeah, I think there go our hopes for the Nationals up in smoke, and yeah, there goes the GB, and all our hopes for the Nationals, and I remember when we did that scene when they were dragging the GB, and if you look closely, you can see the cable. You can see the cable dragging the GB where it comes sliding to a stop, and there was one point at which a cable got loose, and it whipped Alan across the back of the leg, and so he was like, "No, not doing that shot anymore."
Yeah, he seemed to have a slight limp in some of the takes there when you watch him kind of walking up to it. I would imagine that not a good day. And this was up in Santa Maria where
that's right.
where they were shooting all that. How long were you on the airfield set?
I don't really remember. Long enough to have a few really terrific hangovers. I think, we might have been up there for a week or more. Maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that.
It's a beautifully dressed location. I mean, there's so many, even, from the air, they have to build everything out to make it,
Oh, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. I tell that the hangar is still there and that they've made a museum out of it. I've always meant to go back up and have a look at it, but I haven't made it yet.
Well, we're gonna have the curator on in a little while to talk about the museum that's existing, and from what we've seen of pictures of it, it's changed a lot. There's fence work and there's all kinds of stuff, but it's still, the hangar is still there with the big Bigelow sign out front.
Well, that's cool.
We go from the GB that we're looking at the GB, and we cut from a broken plane to a broken car with bullet holes in it as Fitch is waving the tow truck away. And you're out of your whatever the 30s equivalent of a members only jacket is to
yeah,
but real leather, back then we did things right.
You get those smashing jodhpurs. Those look really good. And
I love those.
And this we're getting into the scene where there's arguments about repaying for rebuilding the GB and stuff.
That's right.
I guess there was a lot of activity with all these floor effects that are going on between the pulling the GB and the shooting at the cars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It must have been a fantastic time with seeing all these classic air racers and things all just kind of stacked around.
I mean, it was heaven. It was heaven. It was like being in an old-fashioned movie. My first two movies, this one and Dracula, they were like old-fashioned movies, and I got the feeling like an old-fashioned movie star. I did most of my own stunt work, the stuff, of course, that wasn't falling off of planes in midair. I got to go up in the GB with Craig and race around, and that terrified the living blankety blank out of me. But I wasn't about to let them know that. It just was. It was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal.
It's amazing to me to know that you came into this with some discomfort around flying and things. And, we just, Jim Franklin was there on the set working under the direction of Craig Hosking, the aerial coordinator. And they used their Waco biplane and, did up the black back half of it to look like the GB with the cockpit and everything.
Yeah.
We just shared, as you know, Billy, we just shared some pictures of from Jim Franklin's late Jim Franklin's son, Kyle, and showing what that looks like. And you're strapped in the back there, and that's one of the best, sort of in camera effects I think I've ever seen. It just works, and there isn't an ounce of apprehension or anything on your face during any of those shots where we're looking back at you in the cockpit. So I guess they call that acting.
They call that acting. I mean, I was petrified. The funny thing was that they asked me right off. Joe came to me and he said, we're thinking here's what we're thinking. And you just feel free to say no, because they said we were thinking that we might do the plane stuff in the beginning of the movie, actually do it up in the air. And, if you could have been inside my stomach or my any other part of my anatomy at that point in time, you would have seen it pucker and move further toward the interior of my person. But I just looked at him, smiled, and said, I think that's a fantastic idea. We should do that. And went home and cried in my pillow. But I was terrified, and the more so because Craig said, and he said, look, this is all going to be great. We're going to really make you familiar with everything. We're not going to go up without, you knowing everything that's going on and so forth. And I thought, okay, all right, great. I'm still going to be nervous. So they sat me in the plane, and they built this, the flight cap with in-house speakers so that I could hear him. And he sat in the front cockpit and spoke to me, and I'm like, okay, great, I can hear him. And I sat back there, and because there are a few things that have to happen from the rear cockpit, because that's the one that is usually the plane is usually flown from. And I think the choke is back there, and the tail wheel lock. And, we discussed it pretty clearly. I mean, the tail wheel lock has to be, at a certain point, to be, locked, because otherwise you can, go skittering off the runway or what have you. And of course, the oil has to be, I had to do something with the oil, or something bad happens and we fall out of the sky. And so this is all well and good, and I'm super, super nervous, but here we go. And he starts up the plane, and he looks back at me and says, "You ready?" And I look up at him, and he's got his thumb up, and I put my thumb up, and then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I saw him say that, but I didn't hear a damn thing, because the engine was going. And he just turned back around, and we went off down the runway and did the whole thing. And I'm screaming at him like, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. But I don't have a microphone, so he can't hear me saying anything at all. And up we go into the air, and I'm like, oh, gee, I hope I did the tail wheel lock when it was supposed to be done. I think I'm supposed to do the oil now. And I was just absolutely, excuse my French, but I was absolutely petrified. And then he flew that thing around. My parents were up there on one of the days when I was flying, and I got my fear of flying from my mother. I know exactly where it came from. She was petrified of flying, and they were, at a certain point, they were standing in the airplane hangar to be out of a shot, and the plane was going to come down. He was going to come down in the biplane as close as he could and sort of turn the corner of the hangar and then zoom down the runway. When the GB makes that close, whatever you call it, pass over or flyover or something. And I mean, he basically turned the corner of the hangar. I mean, it felt that way anyway. And my parents said they were in the hangar and they could see up in the high windows, they could see the plane coming at an angle, which my mother said was completely wrong. That is a completely wrong angle. And she starts yelling at my stepfather and the rest of my family inside the airplane hangar, and the plane comes down, and I think she, if she was any older, she might have had a heart attack.
Wow.
So,
and you're up there yelling, "Watch this, PV," with a big smile on your face.
Yeah.
Again, acting.
Again. Let's do it again.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It all turned out okay.
Yeah, the editing made it. Yeah, I mean, you could never tell that you were actually on, somebody else's plane when you're doing this.
No.
Did you also do the aerial stuff while you had the oil being sprayed in your face, or was that that a studio? Wow.
Yeah, we did that in the air. We did everything was in the air. I mean, and they, Joe said, they said in the beginning when he said, we can do this, we can go up on a high hill and we can put a double for the GB on a gimbal and we can blow fans in your face, but I just think it'll be so much better if we do it. And I said, okay, great. Me too. It'll be fantastic. And even the oil thing. We did all of it in the air.
Hopefully one take. I can't imagine getting hit in the face with the oil over several different flights. That would.
I think the oil was one take. I know we did more than one flight, but I think the oil only happened once, as far as I recall, because there was, of course, wardrobe and stuff. They didn't have so many of the jackets, and the oil is difficult to get out of there. So. Yeah. If indeed it was oil, it might have been something doubling for oil. I don't remember.
Wow. Well,
but I remember Craig saying to me, we did as few flights as possible because early on I said to Craig, before I think we did any flying, I remember saying, wow, the GB, holy heck, you must be thrilled to fly that thing. And he looked at me and didn't even have a smile on his face. And he said, I count the number of times I have left to fly this.
Wow.
Like he did not like to be in the air in the GB. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've heard the same thing from Steve Hinton, who was also on the set. Well, I think Steve and Craig were the only two that flew the GB.
Yeah.
And neither of them were very fond of it. Jim, up on our website, either now or soon, we've got a couple of articles by the guy who built the GB back in the 70s. And so if we could share those out, I think people would enjoy going in depth reading about how that particular replica was made.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's like Peavy says at the beginning of the movie, it's a handful. I mean, it's an engine. Yeah. It's an engine that they bothered to put wings on. So I can imagine the kind of if it inspires fear in somebody like Steve Hinton, you can expect that it was trouble.
Oh yeah.
But those scenes were fantastic. I mean, all of the aerial shots were just incredible to watch. And it's a beautiful looking ship, even if it's hard to handle.
Isn't it though? It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous little thing, and I'm utterly sure that's why Dave chose it, because it's so much fun to draw, so much fun to look at.
Yeah, it's photogenic. Well, let's talk about some more classic acting. You get to have a fist fight with Ed Lauder here.
That's right.
That looked like a good, nice and theatrical. I mean, you two guys are doing those big, roundhouse punches.
Exactly. The things that don't happen in real life.
Yeah. Hold still while I punch you. Yeah. But Ed seems like he's an old warhorse at this. He's been in so many different movies, and he really
Ed was great fun to hang around with, and Jim Handy. They've both been round the block several times, and the stories were fantastic. I remember Ed had been in a film, I think it was called The Longest Yard, which was a favorite of mine. I think it was a Burt Reynolds film, right? Set in a prison where they got a football
Eddie Albert
football team. Yep.
Yeah. And he told some good stories about that.
Wow, but a good. It's like you have the whole, most of the cast that's on the airport field is in this one scene. I mean, you've got Bill Sanderson and.
That's right.
Gosh, I mean, they're all just incredible actors right there, and we'll be talking. I don't want to get into all of them because if we're gonna have you on a later set, but it seemed like a real good crew that was there. I mean, you all probably had a bunch of stories
fantastic. Oh, we had a good time, and in fact, there were times we had too good a time. We sort of took over the airport up there. The hotel in Santa Maria, and just I'm sure they were, happy, sad / happy to see us go, / extremely happy to see us go. I think we were a bit of a nuisance. And as I say, I had several world-class hangovers. In fact, the moment when I turned to Peavy in the cockpit and tell him, let's make some history.
Yeah.
Oh, I was in such pain. Such pain. No, I'm serious. And if you I always hated that shot because I was so bloated from the night of drinking at the hotel and so hungover. I always hated that shot. But I guess if you don't know, you You wouldn't be able to tell.
Well, so for the Rocketeer watchers who are out there, go back to minute 3 and take a careful look at that minute 3. Yeah.
And kids, don't drink.
Yeah.
No,
especially when you're going to fly a GB. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Wow.
Drinking and GBs don't mix.
No, they don't.
And we do have to ask you back while we're back at minute 3. Hal was noticing your incredible athleticism in getting your leg swung over the top of the GB. That was quite. Maybe that was all part of. You just didn't notice the pain because there was so much going on. But
you're kicking. You're kicking halfway up to your chest. It's just to flicking that leg up and step right up in there. Did you practice that?
I had to practice that a few times. I did practice that a few times, and I could not come close to doing that these days. But I did. I remember I did have to practice that once or twice just to make it look like I'd done it before.
Yeah. It worked. It worked. Yeah. Wow. Well, we'll just leave things here while our FBI agents Fitch nurses his busted chin, and
you mean it's his kisser?
His kisser, yeah, sorry, his kisser. Yes, he got socked on the kisser.
You hung one on his kisser, and then you waltzed. I wish we could talk.
I just loved it. I mean, I remember being so envious of his line. That line is so fantastic.
You're a flyboy. He hangs one on my kisser. You let him waltz. It's just you just chew on every word. In that line,
well, you do get to use the phrase nickel nurser in the near future. So that's
true. Lousy nickel nurser.
Yeah. You wait for days when you say that. But let's pick this conversation up tomorrow, and we can chat about this. For people who are going crazy wanting to talk about this on the social media, we're available at a bunch of places. Go check us out on Twitter, Rocketeer Minute, and you can also read Billy's tweets out there. You can also find us on social media and Facebook at the Bulldog Cafe, the Rocketeers Bulldog Cafe, and of course the great big website rocketeerminute.com, where you can see all these articles that Hal was just talking about. There's pictures of previous episodes. Sign up for us on iTunes, Google Play, and get this podcast delivered to you fresh every morning. Actually, it's late at night. You'll get it the night before. It's the Bulldog edition. So you can catch all this. Just go out, find Rocketeer Minute on either iTunes or Google Play, subscribe. The rest is cake. So we'll finish up this part of the conversation. There's more to come, but visit us here tomorrow as we finish out the week on the Rocketeer Minute. So see you around, Rocketeer, and until next time, over and out.
Yeah, boys. See you tomorrow.